Ladies and gentlemen, today we are pleased to welcome Mr. Monarch Bhatt from India. Mr. Monarch is practicing into indirect taxes and is a partner at Fairlaw. His expertise includes advisory, litigation, and compliances of indirect taxes in the areas of GST, service tax, and excise. He has delivered many lectures on GST and trained government officials, industrialists, and advocates. Mr. Monarch has authored e-handbook on various GST topics and a book on Sabka Vishwas Law and Procedure. He has received several profound awards for his contribution in GST. And today, he will be sharing his expert opinion on GST way forward amidst COVID-19, which would be in respect of the practical issues raised by the clients. With that, I ask you to give full attention to today's session.
I have been informed that most of you are not in India and may not be having a background of the GST. So I have been asked specifically to deal with the basics of the GST as well. GST was introduced in 1st July 2017 in India. So it is just a 3 years old baby. In India, you need to obtain a GST state-wise registration, because registration is always for most criteria for anything to do as a legally. So GST registration needs to be obtained, which is to be obtained state-wise. Say for example, our association Fairlaw, where we are rendering our services across the country, and we are having our offices situated in 4 different states. We are having our presence in Mumbai, that is Maharashtra, Delhi, Bangalore, and Calcutta. So in this scenario, when we are having our establishment in 4 different states, though it is a one entity, that is Fairlaw, having a one PAN, we need to obtain 4 different registrations for GST purpose. As the registration is a state-wise. GST rates are generally from 0.25% to as high as 28%. We can say that 0.25% is only on the one goods, that is precious diamonds. Apart from that, there are 4 different slabs available in India, that is 5%, which is on essential commodities. Thereafter, there is a rate of 12% slab rate, 18%, which is generally most of the items are covered under the slab of 18%. Most of the services are also getting covered under the slab of 18%. And GST is also applicable at the rate of 28%, which is obviously on the luxury items. So these are the 4 different slab rates available in India, that is 5%, 12%, 18%, and 28%. In an exceptional like diamond, it is 0.25%. Yes, e-way bill is mandatory for movement of goods in India. Where you are moving your goods from one state to another state, e-way bill is necessary. Where you need to generate an e-way bill on the system for movement of goods, and accordingly it has its own validity as per the kilometer it calculates, and accordingly it expires as well. So within that framework, it should reach the destination. Otherwise, you need to follow the procedures for revising the e-way bill as well. So e-way bill is mandatory for movement of goods. Then, as we discussed that in India, they have adopted a mechanism where invoice level details needs to be matched. So whatever supply you have made during a month, that needs to be uploaded on the portal, and then your receiver will be able to avail the credit based on the details uploaded by you. So that is called as filing of GSTR1, which is to be done on a monthly basis. Then you need to make a GST payment, which is also on a monthly basis, and along with that summary return needs to be filed, that is GSTR3B return. And yes, you need to do a GST audit as well. If your turnover as of now, that is aggregate turnover, is more than 5 crore, then you need to get your accounts audited as per the statutory audit to be conducted under the GST. So with this basic framework, we are moving now to with the today's topic, that is what are the issues corporates are facing in this pandemic situation of COVID-19. So friends, first issue is that reduction or waiver of rent. We have seen that all the corporates, all the units, all the manufacturers, all the retailers are having their offices, having their stores. Say for example, you say anything, any name like Pepe Jeans, your Spiker, your Lifestyle, everything is in a mall. They don't have any own premises, so they have entered into an agreement with the owner of the premises, and accordingly they have entered into a lease agreement and they are getting charged rent on a monthly basis. So in this situation, tenant are asking for the reduction or waiver of rent amount. So in this scenario, when they are asking for the waiver of rent, in this case, we have come across various issues. So those are the issues we would be discussing now. First issue, when lessor is reducing the rent by entering into a supplementary agreement. There can be another issue where lessor is reducing the rent without entering into a supplementary agreement. Third is lessor reducing rent as per force majeure clause mentioned into lease agreement. And another is lessor waiving entire rent amount during the lockdown period as announced by the government. So friends, these are the different 4 scenarios where rent is either reduced or it has been waived. So we would be discussing one by one each scenario. So first is lessor reducing rent by entering into supplementary agreement. Friends, we will take a live example. Say for example, mall is there. They are having several tenants. Say for example, Levi's is there, Pepe Jeans is there, Spiker is there, Lifestyle is there. He is charging the rent, say for example, 10 lakh on a monthly basis. Thereafter, in this situation, he is saying that no. In a generally, you are charging me 10 lakh rupees, but in this situation, kindly reduce the rent to the extent of 25%. So instead of 10 lakh, you charge us 7,50,000. So in this scenario, they have entered into a supplementary agreement as well, right? We have seen that they have entered into a supplementary agreement. So in this, when they have entered into a supplementary agreement, so what could be the GST implication, whether rent is payable on the original amount of 10 lakh rupees or 7,50,000? So first of all, friends, rent is a continuous supply of service. Under GST, there is a concept of continuous supply of service. When you are providing the services on a recurrent basis, which is exceeding for a period of 3 months, then it is to be considered as a continuous supply of service. And renting of immovable property is a continuous supply of service. So first of all, it needs to be seen that whether that agreement, that is supplementary deed, has been entered prior to that date what has been mentioned in the contract or not. Say for example, it has been mentioned that it will be rent would be charged on the monthly basis on the first of every month. So that supplementary agreement needs to be entered prior to that first of the month. If it has been entered post scenario, then in those situations it will not be considered, and department may object on it that whatever waiver, whatever reduction you are giving to the tenant is a post event. So on a monthly basis, you were supposed to discharge your taxes on the first. You have entered into a supplementary agreement on the 15th of the month. So event of time of supply has already been occurred, and therefore you would be liable for the payment of GST on 10 lakh instead of 7 lakh 50,000. So you should be very, very cautious while entering into a supplementary agreement. That supplementary agreement is to be entered prior to the date on which your tax payment dues or your time of supply dues as per the contract. If it is entered prior to that, definitely you would be liable on the reduced amount as per the supplementary agreement. Next issue is lesser reducing rent without entering into supplementary agreement. So in this case, lesser is reducing the rent, but he has not entered into a supplementary agreement. Now, friends, we all know that contracts can be written, contracts can be oral as well. So without entering into a supplementary agreement, also you can reduce your rent. But when GST department will ask you on what basis you have reduced it, then you would not be able to substantiate. So in this scenario, when you have not entered into any type of supplementary agreement, then I will say that it is to be mentioned specifically as a discount on the invoice. Because as per section 15 of CGST Act, you can give a discount when it has been mentioned on the agreement and mentioned on the invoice. That you can mention on the invoice that during this scenario of COVID-19, we are giving you the discount of 25%. So some documents should be there before issuance of tax invoice. And in this scenario as well, your time of supply should be the original as mentioned in the agreement. You cannot change the time of supply without entering into a supplementary agreement. So in the second scenario, where lessor is reducing the rent without entering into a supplementary agreement, he can charge on the reduced amount, but you have to mention it on the invoice level. However, department may also object on it, but we need to substantiate to the department. Third issue is where rent has been reduced as per the force majeure clause mentioned in the lease agreement. Friends, we are aware that in all the agreement, there is a force majeure clause. So in this case where it is saying that as per the force majeure clause, waiver or reduced rent is to be charged, then what could be the GST implications? And along with this, we will also discuss the fourth issue. Lessor is waiving the entire rent during the lockdown period, because in India, we can say that lockdown period is almost of 2 months, around 55 days. So lessor and lessee has agreed that, okay, so during the lockdown, we should not be charged any rent. Entire rent is to be waived off. So what is to be done in this scenario? See, friends, where force majeure clause will apply in this scenario or it will not apply, that is the moot question, first of all. Because can you say that this is an act of God? Can you apply what you have mentioned in the agreement as a force majeure clause? And over and above during the lockdown period, can you say that it is an act of God or it is an act of government? So friends, there is a one term under the schedule 2 where it says that activity is to be treated as a supply of goods or supply of services. It says that agreeing to the obligation to refrain from an act or to tolerate an act or a situation or to do an act is to be treated as a supply of service. So where you are reducing the rent as per the force majeure clause, can it be treated as a tolerating an act? Can it be treated as a tolerating a situation? So this is a clause where department will try to catch you, even when you are applying a force majeure clause. So this needs to be taken care that whether you can fall under this or not. So in my view, when you are applying a force majeure clause and you are saying that, okay, we would be charging you as per this clause, then you cannot say that you have tolerated an act. What you have mentioned in the force majeure clause, you have not entered into an agreement to tolerate this act. Force majeure clause is especially for that purpose where something beyond the control happens, which is an act of God. So in those situations, department will definitely object on this deduction. But in my view, it needs to be argued before the higher authorities, and definitely it is a litigation process, but you can get a waiver from it. So even when force majeure clause has been applied, it is to be charged on the reduced rent. Say for example, instead of 10 lakh rupees, as per the force majeure clause, you have agreed to charge only 5 lakh rupees. So GST is to be charged on the 5 lakh rupees and not on the 10 lakh rupees. And when department objects on it, it needs to be fight out with the department. And yes, we were discussing this one of the issue that when complete rent has been waived, complete rental has been waived for the lockdown period, and one of the entity is a related party as per section 15, that we were discussing the example of mall where one of the unit is owned by your sister concern. So in those scenario, even though you are waiving the entire rent, but since it is a transaction between the related party, and if you are not entering into any type of supplementary agreement, then you would be liable for the payment of GST on the entire 100% amount what has been mentioned in the agreement, because in the related party transaction, you cannot reduce the amount because it should be on the arm's length price. So there you have to be cautious. If the transaction is with the related party and you have waived or you have reduced the rent, for that purpose you need to have a proper documentation, like supplementary deed must be there if the transaction is between the related party. So with this, friends, we can say that in all the situations where rent has been reduced or rent has been waived off, then with the proper documentation, you can say that GST is to be charged on the reduced value or on the nil value, and GST is not to be applied on it, because in all the situation, transaction value is the value what you are getting from the lessee or your tenant. However, it must be substantiated with the documentation, because document is a crucial part which needs to be there to support your case. So friends, with this we are moving forward.
Fair Law's domain expertise includes GST, excise, service tax, VAT, income tax, TDS, audits, company law, and property law.
Another issue we have seen that lots of contracts are getting cancelled because of this pandemic situation of COVID-19. So friends, what is to be done in this scenario? Let us discuss various 2-3 scenarios into this. One is tax invoice has been issued, and once you have issued a tax invoice, you need to discharge the GST. So that tax has also been deposited to the government treasury, and thereafter services of service contract got cancelled. So what is to be done in this scenario? That is the first issue with before us. Next two issue we will discuss later. So when you have issued a tax invoice and you have deposited a tax as well, so what is to be done? Can you issue a credit note or you need to get a refund of what tax has been deposited. So friend, that needs to be analyzed. Say for example, the contract was for the 1 crore. So on that 18% GST was leviable, and accordingly you have discharged a liability of 18 lakh. Now that contract has been cancelled. So what is to be done? Because you have already deposited 18 lakh rupees of GST. So in this scenario, can company issue a credit note? So let us see, as per section 34 of CGST, a credit note can be issued only in 4 circumstances, we can say. When there is a taxable value has not been mentioned correctly. Instead of 1 crore, you have mentioned 1 crore 20. So in those scenarios, you can issue a credit note. Tax amount has not been mentioned correctly. Instead of 18 lakh in our example, you have mentioned 28 lakhs. So in those scenarios, you can issue a credit note. Third situation is where goods are supplied and returned by the recipient. Recipient is saying that no, we don't want these goods, but it is only in the case of goods. We are discussing about the service contract. Fourth, it says that where goods or services found to be deficient, where there is a deficiency in supply of service or in supply of goods, in those circumstances, you can issue a credit note. So now in this contract, you need to identify first of all that why there is a cancellation of a contract. What is the reason behind it? Whether it is satisfying the conditions of issuance of credit note, what we have discussed. If it is satisfying that conditions, then definitely you can issue a credit note. And in those circumstances, once you are issuing a credit note, your liability will get reduced to the extent of credit note has been issued, and accordingly, you would be able to adjust your tax liability. However, say for example, there is no liability. Say for example, you are a startup firm and you were having only that contract, and now in the next 2 to 3 months, you don't have any output liability. So what is to be done? So in those circumstances, I will say that you can go for a refund and you can apply for a refund. We have seen that now government is working very fast on the refund. In one of our own case, we have seen that we got a refund within a period of 7 days. So you can do it refund process. So you will get a refund as well if there is a cancellation of a contract. Now, so let us discuss with the another issue where contract has been cancelled and you have received the advances. And when you have received the advances, you need to issue advance voucher. That advance voucher also you have issued, and you have deposited the GST amount as per the contract, whatever advances you have received, because GST is leviable on the receipt or issuance of tax invoice, whichever is earlier. So accordingly, when you have received the advances, you have discharged the GST liability. And now contract has been cancelled. What is to be done now? So in this scenario, when you have issued an advance voucher and now contract has been cancelled, you cannot issue a credit note, because credit note can be issued only when you have issued a tax invoice. In this case, you have not issued a tax invoice at all. You have issued an advance voucher, right? So tax invoice will be issued when you are rendering a services and there is a completion of service. Only thereafter you will be issuing a tax invoice. So now when you have received advances and advance voucher has been issued, in my view, you can issue a refund voucher. Instead of credit note, you can issue a refund voucher. However, this condition needs to be satisfied. That refund voucher is also needs to be issued only when there is a deficiency of service, only when there is a wrong mentioning of taxable value or tax has been charged wrongly on the refund voucher, then only you can issue a refund voucher. So in those scenario, if it is satisfied the conditions, then you can issue a refund voucher, and accordingly you can adjust your GST liability to the extent contract got cancelled and GST has been paid on the advances. Now friends, next scenario is there where you have received the advances, advance voucher is issued, but GST has not been deposited. Because what has happened that you have received advances on the, say for example, on the 1st of April. So for that, GST liability is not yet discharged as per the GST provisions. So when you have received the advances and tax has not been deposited and simultaneously contract also got cancelled. So what is to be done? So in this situation also, you can issue a refund voucher, and accordingly you don't need to discharge your GST liability as per the advance voucher and then adjust it along with the refund voucher. You can simultaneously adjust it by issuance of advance voucher. So to the extent what advance voucher you have issued and GST liability arising as per the advance voucher, you can reduce it. So there won't be any tax implications after issuance of refund voucher. So there won't be any tax impact on that particular month as well.
Fairlaw is into practice over 4 decades, having expert team, proactive legal solutions, knowledge with wisdom, best use of technology, and provides services across India.
Friends, we have seen in number of cases that people are providing so many different types of goods as a relief measure under the COVID-19. That is, people are procuring masks, they are procuring gloves, sanitizers, and so on, and they are providing. So when company is procuring this supply, these goods from the market, they are paying GST on it, because there is no exemption of levy of GST on such type of goods. GST is leviable on it. Whether you consider it sanitizer, whether you consider it soap, whether you consider it as a provide as a mask or hand gloves, anything. So company has procured it, GST has been paid, and company is in possession of the valid tax invoice. So now under the income tax, it is considered as a eligible expense under the corporate social responsibility. So in this scenario, whatever GST has been paid, whether company is entitled as an input tax credit of it or not, that is the issue going on with the various corporations. So now let us discuss this. What it says that eligibility of credit, what are the conditions, basic conditions, friends, that you can avail the credit if it has been used in the course of furtherance of business. So the important principle is that it is to be used in the course or furtherance of his business, right? Once you say that it is used in the course or furtherance of business, you are entitled to avail the credit. Say for example, I am into the manufacturing of soap, and I am providing this soap as a free of cost, right? So whether I am entitled for the credit of it or not. So in this situation, we can say that it is in the course of furtherance of business because it is a corporate social responsibility and deduction has been allowed under it. Once deduction is allowed under corporate social responsibility, can it be said that it is in the course or furtherance of business? Friends, it is to be noted that they have used the phrase in the course of furtherance of his business. It is not in relation to, it is in the course of furtherance of this business. So it is very wide definition. Everything you can say that which is allowed as an expenditure is to be considered as in the course or furtherance of his business. Because once it is eligible as an expenditure, then it is also in the course of furtherance of business only. Otherwise, it should not be allowed as a deduction under the income tax as well. So, in this situation, we can say that yes, credit is to be allowed on this. But there is one draconian provision that is provided under Section 17. Section 17.5, it starts with the notwithstanding. It says that notwithstanding anything, whatever has been mentioned under Section 16 about the eligibility of credit, but credit will not be eligible in the following situations, where clause H is of the relevance. It says that goods lost, stolen, destroyed, written off, or disposed of by way of gift or free samples. So when it says that disposed of by way of gift or free samples, so credit is to be allowed or not, because it is a notwithstanding clause. So when it has been excluded from that, whether credit is to be allowed or not, that needs to be analyzed. So I can say that you are not disposing of as a free samples. In this situation, you are not giving it as a free sample. You are giving this as a relief measure. You are giving this as a statutory obligation provided under the corporate social responsibility under the CSR. So it is not provided free. You are obeying your obligations. You are fulfilling your obligation of corporate social responsibility. So that needs to be distinguished from the free supply. And in my view, department will definitely object on it, but we need to contest it. It is a good case to argue it out, and it is a chances of winning are bright in this. However, every case depends on the facts. So better facts only makes a better case. So fact is to be crystal clear, and whatever facts we are discussing, based on that we can say that it is a good case to arguing out. So when there is a corporate social responsibility and there is a free supply, that needs to be eligible as a credit. Another similar issue, let us discuss, where ITC on goods unable to use after lockout on starting of manufacturing units. Friends, we have seen that a lockout in India is of almost of 2 months. So when they will start their manufacturing process after this lockout, you will definitely find that many of the inputs are not eligible to use it, because company has procured it from the market prior to lockdown, and every input is having their shelf life. So when inputs has lost its shelf life, in those scenario, whatever GST has been paid on procurement of such input, whether this ITC is eligible to the company, which has not been used for manufacturing of finished goods. So what is to be done? So in this case, friends, again, Section 16 provides that it is in the course of furtherance of business, so you are entitled for the credit. But Section 17 says that it is a block credit, where it says that goods lost, stolen, destroyed, written off, or disposed of by way of gift or free samples. So friends, here we can say that with the simple reading, we can say that goods destroyed, or it has been written off, or it is disposed of. So when it is destroyed or it is written off, then credit is not entitled to the company. right? But friends, we can explore some possibilities of availing this credit, because friends, it is destroyed, written off, is used in conjunction with, by way of gift or free samples. So friends, when you say that it is written off because of it has lost its shelf life, then in those scenario I will say that once you have allowed the credit, as it is in the course of furtherance of business, on the other hand, you cannot disallow this credit. So friends, in this situation also department will object on it, but I will say that the moot question, the main basis of introduction of GST shall be applied over here. Because friends, when I have procured these goods, it is already a cost to me. Though it has not been used to manufacture that particular finished goods, but I have already incurred a cost for that. And once I have incurred a cost for that, I am definitely going to recover it from the sale of another goods. So whatever has been written off, indirectly it has been used for manufacturing of my goods. So when it has been used indirectly, then you cannot say that no, credit shall not be allowed. So it is to be challenged on the principle itself, that what principle has been mentioned under clause H, that itself uh, is to be set aside. That principle itself is not tenable under the law. It is on the basis, on the jurisprudence, it is to be challenged. So friends, with this we can say that the credit is allowed in this. Right now, while discussing this, I also came to know about one more issue where many of the companies have started. They were discussing that, sir, what we are doing, we are providing a packet, like we are providing one sanitizer, 4 soaps, and we are also providing one mask and hand gloves. Entire pack, we are saying that it would be of 1000 rupees. Hypothetically, I am saying that it is of 1000 rupees. So on that, whatever company is procuring for their employees or for their company, whether they are entitled for such credit. So yes, they are entitled for such credit. There is no restriction, because it is in the course of furtherance of business, because to run the factory, that is necessary requirements. Okay, so in those circumstances, it will not fall under the free supply. Whatever you are getting, it is a bundle. You are getting a composite supply of goods receiving for a 1000 rupees, all those goods. So you are entitled for this credit.
Fairlaw's domain expertise includes GST, excise, service tax, VAT, income tax, TDS, audits, company law, and property law.
Yes. Now, friends, we have seen some of the gray areas and what are the issues going on with respect to the COVID-19 pandemic situation. Now, there are certain relief which has been announced by the government to ease the compliances of GST. So what are those compliances? What are those relief with respect to the compliances has been announced by the government, that we would be discussing. GSTR 3B, as we have discussed that GSTR 3B, which is a summary return and tax liability, is to be discharged on a monthly basis. For that purpose, relief has been announced, that we would be discussing in detail. GSTR 1, which is invoice wise detail, is to be submitted. There also they have provided some relief by extending the timeline for submission of the returns. Interest has also been waived or it has been reduced, that we would be discussing. Deferment of ITC matching, whatever ITC is to be availed on an invoice wise matching, so that has also been deferred. Letter of undertaking, yes, for 2020-2021. See friends, whenever you are supplying the goods to SEZ unit, or you are exporting the goods, or you are exporting the services, or you are exporting to a SEZ unit, you need to have a LUT, that is letter of undertaking, which is having a financial year wise it is to be obtained, and there you are getting a LUT number, which is valid for a fiscal year, financial year, that is April to March. So in this scenario, when there is a lockdown, you can use the existing LUT available with you for a period 2019-2020. That the same LUT number you can use it even for supplying these goods or services for export or to supply to the SEZ unit. And after all, thereafter, by 30th June, you can obtain a new LUT for a period 2021. So there is a timeline where you need to obtain a LUT by 31st March before starting of the new financial year. That timeline has been extended till 30th June. So you can, in the meantime, for a period of 3 months, you can use the existing LUT number for supply of goods or services to zero rated units. Then timeline for filing of refund claim has also been extended. As per the GST provision, refund is to be claimed within a period of 2 years. So when your claim was getting expired between the period 20th March to this lockdown period to the 29th June, then in those scenario, it has been extended and you can file your refund claim by 30th June. So whatever refund claim were getting expired between the period 20th March to 29th June 2020, you can make your refund claim by 30th June. So friends, interest and late fees has been waived for the month of February, March and April. It is to be noted that it has been waived. It has not been, due date for filing has not been extended for the month of February, March and April. So it has been bifurcated into 3 segments. Assessee having the aggregate turnover more than 5 crore, assessee having a turnover more than 1.5 crore to 5 crore, and assessee having a turnover less than 1.5 crore. So accordingly, waiver of interest and late fees has been announced. So we have bifurcated into the month-wise segment, that for the month of February, 100% waiver is given. March and April, 100% waiver has also been given. If you are filing your GSTR 3B within a period of 15 days from the existing due dates. Okay, so for the month of March, that is the existing due date is 20th April 2020. So that to avail the 100% waiver on interest, you need to file your return by 5th May 2020. That is today. If you would have filed your return today and your turnover is more than 5 crore in the preceding financial year, then in this scenario, you are not liable for the payment of interest and you are not liable for the payment of any late fees on delayed filing of GSTR 3B returns. However, if you are filing the March return tomorrow, that is between 6th May 2020 to 24th June 2020, then interest instead of 18%, you have to pay 9%, and you are not liable for the payment of any late fees on delayed filing of GSTR 3B return. And accordingly, if say for example, you are not filing on 24th June 2020, you are filing a March return on 25th June 2020, then in this scenario, friends, please note that you are not entitled for any waiver on interest as well as any waiver on late filing of GSTR 3B returns. You are liable for the payment of interest from original due date, that is 20th April. So from the 21st April till the date of filing, say for example, you are filing on 25th June. Instead of 24th June, you are filing on 25th June. So from the 21st April to 25th June, you would be liable for the payment of interest at the rate of 18% and not at the rate of 9%. Please get it that it is at the rate of 18% for the entire period from the 21st April to 25th June. And for the entire period, you would be liable for the payment of late fees, because it is the waiver of interest and late fees for the month of February, March, and April 2020 is on a condition that you are filing your GSTR 3B by 24th June 2020. If you are not fulfilling that condition, then you are not entitled for any waiver of interest or waiver of late fees. So friends, try to do the compliance on time. Next is, if your turnover is falling in the limit of more than 1.5 crore, but it is up to 5 crore. So what are the due dates? If you are filing your GSTR 3B, say for example, for the month of March 2020 by 29th June and your April 2020 by 30th June, then you are not liable for the payment of any interest, or you won't be liable for the payment of any late fees. So 100% interest waiver and 100% waiver of late fees is available to those type of assessees whose turnover is more than 1.5 crore, but it is up to 5 crore. But you have to file your GSTR 3B by the mentioned due dates. Okay, so this is also a conditional waiver. If your turnover is up to 1.5 crore in the preceding financial year, then you need to file your return as mentioned in the table. That is, February return is to be filed by 30th June, March return by 3rd July, and April return by 6th July. Even in this scenario, if you are not filing your returns on this mentioned extended timeline, then you would be liable for the 18% interest as well as late fees for the entire period. So friends, this is not extension of due dates. This is a conditional waiver of interest and late fees for the month of February, March, and April 2020. So you have to fulfill these conditions, and then only you are entitled for the waiver of interest or reduced amount of interest and 100% waiver of late fees. Now for the month of May 2020, there is an extension of due date. So here there is an extension, and in a staggered manner they have given the extension. If your turnover is more than 5 crore, for all the states across the country, the due date is 27th June. And if your turnover is below 5 crore, then it has been bifurcated zone-wise, state-wise. If you are falling in this particular states, say for example, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Maharashtra, then you need to file your return by 12th July. And if you are falling in this particular states, then you need to file your returns by 14th July. In this case, if you are filing on the next day, say for example, you are having your office in Maharashtra, like our office in Maharashtra office, that is Fair Laws, Maharashtra office is not filing a May 2020 return on the 12th of July, and instead 12th of July, they are filing on the 13th of July. So in the case of May 2020, where there is a extension of due date, Fair Law will be liable only for the payment of late fees and interest for a period of 1 day. Okay, so in this scenario, it is only a day when you are filing a return, because this due dates has been extended. So here, whatever is the delay, it will be counted from these dates. Now, friends, there is a deferment of ITC restrictions for the period February 2020 to August 2020. As per the GST provisions, invoice-wise ITC is to be matched, right? So whatever supply you have received by way of inward supply of goods or services, that is to be matched with the GSTR 2A available on the portal. And on that, whatever is matching over and above 10%, say for example, out of 10 lakh, 5 lakh is been matched with the invoice wise details and 5 lakh is not matching. So of the 5 lakh, what is matching, another 10%, that is 50,000. So 5 lakh 50,000 credit is entitled to you. So now that restriction has been deferred for the invoices pertaining to period February 2020 to August 2020. And for such invoices, you can avail the credit even though it is not reflected on your GSTR 2A report. So in these months, you would be entitled for the entire 100% credit. And thereafter, in the month of September, on a cumulative basis for a period February to September 2020, you need to match it. And if there is some mismatch, then in the month of September, you need to reverse those credits. So this matching of ITC has been deferred in the month of September. So friends, for the period February to August, you are not required to match invoice wise details. So this is the added advantage to the corporates. Now, what about the GSTR 1, where invoice wise details is to be filed? There also, for the month of March 2020, April 2020 and May 2020, due dates has been extended and you can file your return by 30th June 2020 for the month of March, April and May. Even those who are required to file their return on a quarterly basis, they can do for the quarter ending March 2020 by 30th June 2020. So now these are the important reliefs what we have discussed which are in relation to compliance. There are many more relief has been announced, but due to time limit, we are restricting to the important relief what has been announced. So now what is to be done by CFOs and tax team in this
lockdown?
So friends, we are suggesting to all our clients that you do your compliances on time. What we have discussed, those are the important compliances. Please do your compliances. This will enable you to avoid the backlog of the compliances, and you would be able to do and adopt the new things when there is a lockout. So you will get enough time if you have done your compliances on time. Even with this, you will get a relief of interest and late fees. So additional burden won't be there if you are doing your compliances on time. Another, we can say that you can explore the possibility of getting refund. You need to analyze, you need to sit with your consultants and analyze whether you can get the refund from the department. So that needs to be analyzed, because nowadays in this situation, we are aware that all the corporates are having a cash crunch and they want some liquidity. So refund is the best option what you can explore. Another, reviewing of existing contracts. Review your contracts, what you can get out of the contract, whether you can enter into a supplementary agreement, what you can do. We have seen that in some of the cases we can enter into a supplementary agreements and we can legally reduce our tax liabilities. So that can be explored. You can also analyze your state-wise liability where there is an input available. You can do your tax planning because it is a state-wise registration. So in one of the state you may be having a excess input tax credit. In one of the state you might not be having a excess input tax credit, and you in turn are making a GST payment. So that can be planned out. So you can explore that possibility as well, that what are the state-wise liability. So you need to explore that option as well. And when you need to represent your industry level issue to the government, we have represented for the many of the industry. So you can also represent to the government, you can represent to the finance ministry, you can represent to the commerce ministry, you can represent through your associations, you can represent through us as well. Because at Fair Law we have represented so many issues to the government, and we are looking forward for the GST booster package which will be announced soon by the government. So those are the things needs to be done by the CFOs and tax team at this juncture. So these are the some importance what we can discuss at this juncture. If you are facing any type of difficulty, you can write to us. You can stay in touch with us on WhatsApp. We are sending the regular updates relating to the GST. So you can be in touch with us on the WhatsApp. You can be in touch on our Facebook page, YouTube channel. You can be in touch on Twitter as well. So with this, we have tried to explain the balanced view. And these are our personal views. According to the facts and circumstances of your issue, it may get changed. So we need to analyze the facts, because always better facts given us the opportunity to analyze better. So with this, friends, we are concluding our session. Hope you have find it useful and you have enjoyed the session.